AskReddit. What are some phrases that no longer accurately reflect the action, like rolling down a window? Dashboard originally was a barrier of wood at the front of a horse-drawn carriage to protect the driver from mud or other debris dashed up by the horse's hooves. Hanging up the phone. Pickup still works, though usually it's in our pocket or on a table rather than on a wall or desk. Wrap it up or that's a wrap. Referred to wrapping up the film roll after a shot. Talk behind people's backs and take out their problems on people who have done nothing wrong. Footage is especially interesting because in most of the world, the word was obsolete before it even picked up this second meaning. Except in France, where they stuck to their guns and used the word metrage, although in day-to-day talk they just say sequences. Also cut, which used to refer to actually cutting the film strip. Filming with a digital camera. Or taping. In the limelight. Actors used to be literally in limelight. Not been that way since a century. Tinfoil hat. Or tinfoil in general. It's been aluminium for 4 decades now. But tin is easier to say. This reminds me of how pencil artists will constantly refer to different lead softness or hardness. Or even to put more lead on it to darker areas of a drawing. Pencils are graphite now, haven't been lead for decades. Edit. It was never lead. Rewind a bit. I've never thought about rewind, even during my VCR days, as to actually reverse wind the magnetic tape. It's not a phrase, but the little save icon is still a floppy disk. In the UK, some people like me still say tape it to mean record something on TV. Holding your horses, meaning don't be so impatient. Put a sock in it. You're not literally putting a balled-up sock into the speaker horn of your Victrola to muffle the sound because wind-up record players without electricity didn't include a volume knob. In programming, the term print is used to refer to displaying text. This originated when computers would display their outputs on a piece of paper tape. Nowadays, and even since the advent of computer monitors, this has been a legacy term which is outdated but remains in use. From my experience, programming and computer science has a number of legacy terms which don't necessarily reflect the action of the time, but are instead the term previously used for the equivalent action. When I was in middle school, they taught us some programming, and I was really afraid doing a print statement would turn on the printer in the back of the room and print out my hello world. In a groove, which means you are performing well, but actually refers to how the needle of a record player sits in the groove in a vinyl record. Walk slow when I can't go around them. It's great that you don't have anywhere to be, but I do. Google CC email meaning please for the love of God. I understand people are changing it and calling different things because it makes no sense, but that's not what its actual meaning is. For all the naysayers. Here's the official email specification for the internet. RFC 5322. It explicitly says carbon copy and blind carbon copy. Catch a train. We used to have to throw a big net out on the railroad tracks with at least 4 people on either side and pull the train to a halt, only then could we board. Now all we have to do is buy a ticket and walk on since we've fully tamed the train. My husband always says here's a quarter, call someone who cares. To teens, they don't know what he means. Being from a tropical country and a non-native English speaker, the saying every cloud has a silver lining feels so opposite to me. We love rain. I also don't understand the hate for rain and rainy weather in general. Rain is wonderful. Authors write, yet most of them, I assume, type on keyboards. Not really a phrase but a gesture. I've heard of kids putting an open hand to their ear to represent talking on the phone instead of the thumb and pinky extended out like a landline handset. Here in the South, some people say cutting on the lights, TV, etc. I don't even know where that originated. It comes from old blade switches, which were the first kind of switches invented for electric circuits. Even as electricity started moving into the home, early light switches would have inner workings that looked very similar to this. I still say click when referring to tapping on something on a phone or tablet. I know younger generations have already started saying tap instead, but I still say click. Cut and paste used to involve scissors and glue. In chess it is called flagging when you beat your opponent on time, because old school clocks would have a flag raise when the time ran out. Now, especially with online chess and digital clocks, the term is sort of outdated. Removing bugs from code. The very first computers used vacuum tubes, kinda like microchips today, and sometimes bugs would get into the tubes or other components and eat them, causing a malfunction. So literally a computer error would be due to a bug. In the mid-1800s, circuses would parade around town before setting up, with bandwagons leading the parade. They drew large crowds, and politicians started renting space on the bandwagons to get face time with an audience. Over time, politicians would make calls of action, not to jump on the opponent's bandwagon, and the phrase took on a negative connotation, meaning to mindlessly go along with whatever became flashy or popular. At school, the sound that plays each hour to separate the lessons is called the bell, even though it has an electronic sound and sounds much more like a buzzer. I'm from Texas, and I'm almost 50, but my dad was born in 1928, so I grew up with these outdated colloquialisms that just reflect a different era. I'll be a suck-egg mule. More Sunday go-to-meeting friendly way of saying, I'll be damned. Sunday go-to-meeting, church. I'm gonna climb up on your roof and knock off all your shingles. I'll kick your ass. Light a shuck. Leave a place in a hurry. Shoot low, sheriff, I'm crawling, go ahead, I'm listening. Press shift. Used to mechanically shift the type bar of the platen so the uppercase would strike the ribbon and paper. I had one job in my early teens where I actually had a punch card. Not sure if this is still common. Edit, punching the clock. Just want to point out that some people still roll down the windows signed a person with a standard 2008 Toyota Corolla that has crank windows. I haven't seen this yet, so I apologize, I'm too lazy to check, but the pictures we take on our phones save to the camera roll, referring to a roll of film that had to be developed. Dropping a dime or diming someone out both refer to notifying the police about someone doing something illegal by using a payphone to make an anonymous call, which at one point cost a dime to make. Payphones don't really exist anymore, I still one here and there, and they haven't cost a dime since probably the 80s. I work in telecom, and when troubleshooting phone issues, the software still refers to phone lines being on hook and off hook. Hook refers to a hook switch that was used on the old candlestick. The phrase "I'd bet dollars to donuts" used to reflect odds for a hypothetical bet, as donuts were much cheaper than $1. This is no longer the case, and it could now be reflective of odds in the opposite way, as many donuts cost more than $1. Sound like a broken record, meaning repeating yourself as needle on broken, i.e. scratched, records would skip back and repeat a portion of record. In a restaurant, when asking for the bill, if you do a signing motion with your hand, the waiter will bring you the bill. Don't touch that dial. Also known as, don't change the channel, the commercial break will be over soon. TVs used to have actual dials you turn to change the channel. Then again, commercial breaks are pretty much going way of the dodo too, since the majority of people stream, which is, mostly, commercial-free. We don't even call those commercials anymore, it's an ad. Calling enemies in video games mobs comes from old multi-user dimension games from the late 70s and 80s. They were essentially MMORPGs in text form where all the commands were typed: go north, kill rat, get sword. Mobs referred to mobiles, another name for the enemies, because they would typically move between rooms of the mud, while most other NPCs were stationary. Armstrong steering. Before power steering there was fluid drive. You needed muscles to turn the steering wheel, especially if the car wasn't moving very fast. That's why there was 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock hand grips, because you couldn't control the car hanging on the bottom. As common as this still is, phone a friend is becoming less accurate. Why call them when you can just shoot a text or use Snapchat or something else like that? Even I just text my brother or uncle when I'm confused on something small, save the actual call for when I have enough questions to warrant the dial. My friends who work from home still say they have to go to work on Monday. Epic, real definition, is long drawn-out tale. Old stories that span decades were called epics. Recently heard party bros use dank as a good thing when dank actually means dark, damp, and foreboding. A dank forest or dank swamp. I need to spend a penny meant I need to urinate. It comes from when people had to use a coin to access some operated locks on public toilets, mainly in the UK I think. Oops, it looks like you reached the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button to be updated with our latest upload.